Well, hello, hello. We're back again for another Other Ink Thursday. I remain Matthew Orr of Wet Ink Games, and this time I have been joined by Jordan Dube of Goosepoop Games, a name you'll remember every time you hear it. Jordan has, game designer, publisher, zine aficionado, the only TTRPG designer in Portland, Maine. Is that right? Or the biggest
No.
publisher in Portland, Maine, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Welcome to my show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So we've gotten to hang out at PAX East recently, and we made a little video there, and then we hung out afterwards talking about, I don't know, business stuff. And so this isn't the first time we've gotten to know each other, but we didn't really talk about like where you intimated that there was like a long story of how you got into being a game designer, or that you've done many things in your life up to now, or something like that. And so, you don't have to tell the whole biography, but like, games is not your first thing that you're doing. So, like, where does it start? Where does creativity start for you? Like, what is the first things that you were making and doing, and where did that come from?
Wow. Well, it's a story long forgotten. Um, no, in a faraway land. Um, no, let's see. I guess I always like grew up like playing games and
Yeah,
stuff. I was really into like Nintendo. I was a big Nintendo guy. But and for tabletop stuff, I like was like we played Scrabble
sure.
and growing up. But I not when you ask me like where'd my tabletop sense come from,
Well, before even
I
that,
well
because you strike me as like kind of a bit of a weirdo and an outsider, and I don't mean those as insults. And that
yeah.
sort of like way of living, you know, comes from somewhere. Like, what are your, I don't know, you, I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah, so it started I think the inkling that I could make games myself really started when I was in college as a clarinetist, and
Mhm.
then I was doing like sound engineering and stuff as well. And so there was this nifty program at the science building, which I now just live right across the street from, ironically. But there at the science building, at the top floor, there was like this student tech lab where we were given like HTC Vives, the headsets, um, where you could, the augmented realities
Okay,
headsets
okay.
and all that kind of VR stuff. Um, and so there were people already developing games, like programming games, and that's when I um started getting into Unity engine, which is like a programming engine
Yeah,
for video games. Um, I started just doing audio implementation because that's what I wanted to do at the time. I really wanted to work on video games, get into that. It's a very difficult business to get into, so I
sure.
learned that pretty quick. Um,
Eh, So like what kind of like I immediately I know a very small amount of video games, and so like I'm thinking of like the Connor Sherlock walking around things where it's all like different sounds in different parts of the rooms. And is that the kind of stuff that you were developing, or was it more like,
uh,
you know,
No, so the game we made at the shop at that little shop, um, it was called Chicken Mafia,
all right.
and you play a chicken, and you're shooting other chickens down, and you like flap your arms to get higher, and you're trying to shoot all the chickens before they overwhelm you. Um, and that was it. That was the game.
I
So
mean,
that's what we made at the little tech lab.
yeah. I mean, you could make
Uh,
that theme now as a game. Like
yeah.
that's not a million miles away from some
I
of the
mean,
stuff you're doing now.
I have Honk Daddy, which is Goose Mafia.
Yeah.
So, but that's a tabletop game. Um, but yeah, I got really into programming. Um, didn't find like a super big career off of like audio stuff for myself for video games. Um, so I mean, I was focused on clarinet performance. So one of the only the to be full time as a clarinetist is very limiting. So one of the full time things you could do is be in the military bands. So I was a clarinetist in the army band, um, did all the army kind of things, but then also played clarinet, was sound engineer, was the IT guy, and other various jobs that they made us do. Um,
Did that involve like travel? Because a lot of people get to see the world through the military that way. Like, did you go, you're
uh,
performing in uh, reviews in Germany and
Yeah, I
Dubai
wish.
and Japan,
No. I mean if I stayed longer I could have gone to those bands, but I only stayed for like 3.5 years or so. Um and so I was stationed down in Savannah, Georgia. So I was down there playing, and it was really great. I mean, I enjoyed the people that I met, and I'm still friends with a lot of people from there. And that I also, so when I was down in Savannah, that was kind of, that was like mm, 3 years ago, I got out. So around 2022 I got out, but before then like 2021 or something or 2019, that was kind of the first time I was like tuned into board games. So I started like um a game group where the plan was we were just going to talk about video games because one of the people I started the group with, he is an editor for like a indie game site, journalism site, and then I also became a indie game journalism, video game journalist, with him. Um,
you have had a lot of careers. This is what you
yeah, I've had a
intimated
lot of
before. You're
stuff.
like, you're done a lot of
Yeah,
things.
I've leaving a lot of other things out too. Um, but yeah, so that was the first time, like, so our first meetup. Someone brought Secret Hitler,
Okay.
the board game,
Hmm.
and we just happened to play it like the whole time, like 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. Just there was like a huge group of us, and we just played it the whole time. And it was just such a great, like, memorable experience that I was just kind of like thinking about, like, oh, maybe I should check out what tabletop games are all about.
Right. That's
Um,
a lot of those social deduction games are already playing on that like edge between like, is it really a board game or is it like just sort of a role-playing game mitigated through a few
right.
cards? Yeah.
hmm Uh, yeah, so I got really into that, and then I watched all like the Shut Up and Sit Down game reviews. So that's how I understood all of that's how I got up to date with all the board game stuff. I didn't go crazy and buy like huge racks of games. Um, I say that, but I just built that bookshelf to fill more TTRPGs.
Right.
And now
Yeah.
it's might be getting to a problem. No, it's fine. It's a solution. Um, but
Solution
yeah,
shelf.
yeah, it's the solution shelf with all my solutions. Um, Yeah, so I got really into it when I was in the army. I got a degree in computer science with a minor in game design, and that was tabletop game design, weirdly enough. They didn't want video games. I was like, okay, whatever. But around that time I was also doing game jams. So there was like a whole year where like every month I was just cranking out a new game like over the course of a weekend.
Yeah.
Um a video game. And so that was just to get my portfolio together so I could show something. Um so I was making a lot of games and then I did some tabletop stuff with the game design minor. Nothing super to write home about. But I kind of like the game jam way of working
Hmm.
kind of leaked into how I think about games when I design. So like the strategy with game jams is like you have just excel on one mechanic and make that really cool because you only have a weekend. So just have one aspect that's really cool. Um, and I just kind of like that kind of idea of just focusing on a mechanic. With tabletop stuff, I really love. If there's one thing you should know, it's I love small boxes. And so anytime I see a game that's larger than my hand, I'm like, could we put this in a smaller box?
Mm.
Just how can I condense this? It's like I mean, my biggest pet peeve is, the whole bag of chips kind of way we do sell games sometimes is like
Mm.
here's a big box that's taking up a lot of shelf space and then here's five components that
Yeah.
that take up half or one quarter of the box.
Yeah. I mean, I, yeah, I get it. Sometimes, there's many things that motivate trying to take up shelf space, for sure.
You're right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
mean, I
does.
understand
There's
why they do it, but like it's frustrating. As someone who's
sure,
paid money for it,
sure.
it's like oh, I just spent $60 on mostly air. That's really cool. Really happy about that. Um, so and also small boxes are really great because I love bringing my tote bag of games to a game night and then people are just like staring at it in awe as I pull out even more games from the
Yeah,
bag
I
because
brought 35 games. They're all in
yeah,
this bag.
yeah.
Um,
So
yeah.
that's great. If we want to go to TTRPGs, yes, let's go to TTRPGs. I
Well,
don't know.
I mean, I think that everything you were saying is kind of leading up to that because like a lot of the things you're just talking about are sort of what I see in your current sort of game design sort of philosophy where you've got these. I happen to have one here that you gave me at the con, and I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I'm on. I don't know. It takes like 3 weeks to play, and I'm like on day 13 or so of it, and
Oh, nice.
it
Oh,
is
you're almost done.
yeah, yeah. Well, then I got to do the
Yeah,
obstacles. So I haven't done the
obstacles. Yeah.
obstacles yet. But anyway, what I'm saying is like, yeah, it's like this book is it's like maybe 3 pages of rules, right? And they're tiny little pages, and then the rest of it is for you to fill out and complete your character. It's called for the viewers, it's called I Would Love It If You Noticed, and it's a solo mindfulness game, and you spend 2 weeks creating a character by like rolling on the tables and like thinking about things from your own life, and then sort of twisting those things into something about your character. And it's been interesting to kind of every day you kind of think a little bit more and like, okay, what is that this character that I'm developing and who they are and they're this morning I determined that they have a shaved head and that they made their own. I'd already determined they made their own knives, and so like of course they make their own razor
Oh,
blades, and so
wow.
like one of their little kit is like a little shaving kit because they shave their own head every day, with their own knives that they made, and so like these things are like that's a cool thing that you that's just I don't know. It's a cool thing about the character. Anyway, that's this little game. It's a very small game, and all your games, a lot of your games are that way. That they're like maybe three sheets of paper folded together and stapled, and they're so they don't have a lot of length to them. And I've seen some of your like card games too, where it's like there's 20 cards in this little sleeve and or this tiny little box. So like you talking about like you don't like big boxes and you like to do things quick and you like to have one mechanic that excels like all of those things are what you're currently doing. So it makes sense that this is sort of like all the elements that you've come through. Um, it totally makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think to, I've interrupted you a little bit. You were about to say like, what's the final thing that made you like, oh no, I'm really going to do, you've been game jamming, you've studied game design, but what's the final like sort of like thing that made you decide that like no, now is the time that I'm going to become like start publishing zines and start like building a name and start going to shows and selling, you know,
Oh gosh.
little booklets. Like I
Um,
mean maybe that didn't happen all at once, but like what was the final thing that like you had a constellation of like prerequisites
mhm.
and then like something was like aha, it crystallizes and now this is what I'm doing. What
Yeah. So, yeah, so when I moved back up to Portland in 3 years ago, I was a UX. I became a UX designer,
hmm
and that kind of was from when I did an interview with this tech company. I was like, I really just love observing how people interact with things and how they overcome obstacles. I'm just really interested in seeing how people think. Um, and I do that like just in my normal life where I'll just ask questions that may seem pretty obvious what the answers are, but I really just want to see what you are thinking, like what your answer is. Um, or it's yeah. Um, so yeah, if you ever see me and then I ask a really dumb question, I'm either being dumb or I'm being really introspective. Um,
yeah,
but you'll have to decide that for yourself. Um,
right.
but so the UX user experience is like a whole big field. I really enjoy it. So it's the kind of big goal with it is to make um, systems easier for people. It's about accessibility. Um, it's really focused on technology, so that's why the tech company hired me. I started there, and then I also did a different UX job where I was um, doing being the UX designer and then front end engineer for this um, interior interior design application. So you like scan your room and then you can add furniture into it. And I
Sure.
designed the whole shopping interface so it was easy to understand and interact with in the whole scanning process. Um, so
Brings back that that virtual reality stuff that you were talking about too.
yeah, yeah, it calls back like all my video game knowledge, which was really nice to incorporate that. I had a good time with it. Um, And then there was a point where I was kind of like thinking about like, what if I just made games, but like not video games anymore? What if I just did like board games? First it started with board games and then it branched to TTRPGs. Um, and so that thought was kind of sitting in my head for a little bit. Um, I first started Goose Poop Games as designing stickers for people. So I was doing like art for like local organizations to do like their promo because I was wanting to do more. I was thinking that that might lead to more consultation for UX stuff or just get help out businesses. Do logos. Um,
So like, your art, like the derpy little goose and stuff like that, that's all your drawings.
yeah, all
Is
the
that right?
goose stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, all the branding and stuff. Oh, I also helped start the board game group that's in Portland right now, FriendCon, and then we do a twice a year convention, and then we meet every Saturday, and then we have a once a month TTRPG night and a chess club every week.
I mean,
And I help do
that's
all that.
that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
You're,
I help put all that together. Uh,
but
yeah, I'm kind of one of those people that just never stops
it
doing
sounds like
things.
it.
I
It
love working. Um, and so I did all like the logos and stuff, started up the social media, got that all that together, contacted vendors and people and blah blah blah,
well,
and
I,
put
I
all that.
I do want to talk more about your games, and sort of maybe
Sure.
some of the games that you've done, but like the question, the thing you just said is something else that I really I don't know, I'm intrigued and I respect you for this and stuff like that because it's like you've only been doing games for like a year, 18 months, something like that before you, I mean, obviously you're, as you talked about, you're game jamming and stuff like that and making
Mhm.
other kinds of games. But as far as like, no, I've been making zines, I've been going to shows, that's very recent, right? I mean, I don't, is that's right? It's like 18 months or so that
Yeah.
you've been putting out your current line of games. And yet, this year, it's like you're already doing like you're going so hard at this right now. Like, and I think that you say you don't like to stop, you like to keep working, and so like you've set yourself some very ambitious goals for the year as far as like con attendance and stuff that
Mhm.
like a lot of people, uh, other people that I know in the industry, they wait years before they try to go to cons and stuff like that, and you're just like, well, no, I'll just book them and go, and which is
Yeah.
uh, I, I don't know if it's genius or foolhardy. I mean, I guess we'll find out together as we see each other at all
I
these
don't
cons
know.
throughout the year. But like you've got this sort of I don't know, impetuousness or something to you that just like, I don't know, I'll just do it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's uh, but I think in hearing you talk about like all the different things that you've done, I mean, I think that's sort of like you've kind of it seems like to me that you've developed sort of like well why not try it kind of attitude based on like
Right.
all the other things you've done so like am I inventing that or is there sort of did you have you made a strategic has this been a strategic choice or is it just kind of seemed
Um,
logical or what?
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, just like it within my own brain, I'm I am like, oh, I release games, so I gotta go to conventions now. So this is what I gotta do. So that's kind of just like in my brain, I'm like, all right, time to go start signing up for conventions, 'cause I make games now, so I gotta get a booth. Um, I don't know. It's hard to just do it. Like yeah, it I've learned early on like I do a lot of well, I mean that's what spawned the mindfulness game is like I do a lot of introspection and like kind of contemplative like what are the obstacles I have in my own mind
Hmm.
and then is that reality? And then or is it just like something that I'm making up? It's like, oh, I couldn't go to PAX East. I only have 4 games or 5 games. I'm like, I see people in the whole booth, they only have 1 game. It's
It's
whatever.
true. It's true.
Yeah.
It isn't about the
So,
games. I mean, it is it there's a booth that I think they only have two games, and they've been to every show like for years with only their two games, you know? And
Yeah.
I mean, I have other merch and stuff like that, but like, I don't know. Right. I mean, I think that's so fascinating, right? To like you write your own like list of why you can't do something. And so like if you don't put anything on that list, then why can't you? You know?
Right.
That's such a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
Uh I mean, I don't have a transition back to like talking about the individual games, but like what are some of the
Sure.
themes you've I mean, you've got this one that we were just talking about, the I would love it if you noticed, but like
Oh,
you've got some other ones like and obviously we have to talk about Good Soup as well, because I definitely want to talk about Good Soup and I definitely want to talk about Warped FM, but like because those are sort of like larger or more
yeah.
successful or sort of more prominent things, but like what are some of the other ones that you've done? Because like you have a lot of really weird what are some of the weirdest ones that you've done so far?
Uh, the weirdest one.
Because I
They're
could be
all
wrong.
weird.
Well, that's
They're
right. That's what
all
I was saying. Like,
very strange. I think the least weirdest one is my cat game, Big
hmm,
Stretch, and you just kind of flip over later times on the clock, and the cat stretches out. But going back to pet peeves of games,
hmm,
where like the pet peeve was the box size.
yeah.
Another pet peeve I have is themes. It's like feels like sometimes like go when I was first contemplating about going in and making games, I was just like it feels like everybody's doing just like there's space and then there's fantasy. And
Those are big
there
ones for sure.
there's so many other things in this world that I could talk about and why it doesn't have to be space and fantasy. I'm also not the biggest fan of fantasy, but don't yell at me for that. But
No, everybody can like what they
um,
like.
what am I really like it's like the in between. It's called like Slipstream. It's not really heard about that much, but it's where I think all my absurdity comes from. So there's like oh it's like this in between of like sci-fi and fantasy or like sci-fi's in the real world kind of thing. So I'll give like book examples if people want to look it up. So like Stories for the Nighttime and Some for the Day by Ben Laurie is really great. I think that's all like slipstream kind of weird stuff. And then my favorite author, Walter Moores, Moers, he did 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear and a bunch of other crazy ones. City of Dreaming Books is my favorite book. So that's where all the if you're like, where do you come up with this stuff? I'm like, those got some weird stuff in it.
So
Um,
is it
but
like
yeah,
like using the term slipstream? I believe I've heard that before, but like, could you expand about a little more what that is? Is it just sort of like it's like one thing is different and most things are the same, and so that makes it sort of like a step into a sci-fi or a fantasy or a genre sort of thing. But then like, I mean, is that what you mean by that, or is it like the
yeah, kind of. I think it's like there are some aspects of like a sci-fi or fantasy. So maybe like a game I've been thinking of is like you're everybody's witches, but you're just running a coffee shop.
okay?
So so maybe it's like the in between. I also another fun fact about me besides liking little box games is I really enjoy exploring mundanity. So I think that's just really funny. And I think food is really funny, which is why I have a lot of food games.
Yeah.
Um
Well,
but
and like, I mean, the mundanity is like you talked about Big Stretch, which is like it's sort of blackjack, but like you're flipping the card, and if you go, the times have to come out. You're flipping cards, and the time has to come out in order. And if it doesn't come out in
yeah.
order, then you've busted, and you
Yeah, you
lose it.
bust. But if
But
you get
like
it in order, the like
right,
gets absurdly long.
right. If you keep putting out your times in order, the you're laying the cards side by side, and partially covering up the card so that the body of the it's the arms of the cat's just
Hmm.
stretching out further and further. But like it's like you talk about the like sort of the moments of mundanity, like it's just a cat stretch. Like it's the most mundane moment or possibly one of the most mundane moments ever, you know, and yet you've turned it into this sort of like thing to you know, to play the game would take longer than a cat would actually stretch, you know, like you've
Yeah.
expanded the moment into something that has a thing that you're then doing, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
That didn't lead
It's
to a question. I'm just
mundanity, it's mundanity and absurdity, and then
mhm.
and the mix of that is goose poop
Yeah.
games.
And it, I, again, from the outside of your brain, I think, yes, that is what I've observed about you so far is that like, yeah, it's the absurdity and mundanity together is kind of your brand. Um,
Yeah.
so do you want to talk about, I think we should talk about Good Soup because that is sort
Yep.
of like, it's up for a crit award and it is sort of, um, I assume like you tell me what it is because I've seen a copy of it, but I haven't played it. So I assume it's like a Stone Soup kind of thing. But maybe it isn't that. I don't know. You tell us what it is.
Yes. Um, so Good Soup, I'll give the pitch real quick, is a wholesome GMless TTRPG where you play as woodland creatures gathering ingredients to make soup. Um, it only takes like 5 minutes to set up and start playing. Um, and you could use real soup to play, which is really cool. Comes with the soup recipe. Um, yeah, that's a really quick pitch. But what the what is really cool about it, I think what's really cool about it is the whole GM-less aspect of it. So in reality, everybody kind of plays as the GM. So the every time someone wants to take an action, either the last person who took the action or the player to their left, describes the scene and becomes the creatures in the world. And that I think that process just people have been really enjoying that because it allows you to be like while you're playing a game, if you've ever had a moment where you're like, "Oh, I really wish this happened, but I'm not the GM, so I can't like make it happen." Um I mean, maybe you could say it, but like you might feel like that can't happen. Whereas in this game, there's no like GM. So in ways, it's all yes and like, yep, that happens, and then this happens, and so I always say wholesome, but really it just goes unhinged most of the time, off the walls, and woodland creatures. There's only like two, three woodland creatures. I don't know. I'm lying in my own pitch, but yeah, there's like elephants and giraffes and other creatures there. People are like, these aren't woodland. I'm like, they're in the woods.
I mean,
So,
they are in the places where they live in the wild. There's jungle elephants for sure. Um, uh, so is it like mechanically? Is it more like is like if you want to make something happen? Is there like a do you is there like guidelines in the book or something like that and you're like ooh I'm passing this to you or I'm taking hold of the book and now I'm in charge and or
oh yeah.
is there
So how it works is, um, how the usual like game loop goes is everybody talks about like what we're gonna do. You got a list of ingredients that you have to gather, so you're like, let's go to the Royal Observatory. Maybe they got some fairy dandruff there. I don't know. Um, and so you roll for on the creatures table to see what kind of creature you get. Um, and then you just everybody can like work together to describe what's happening. Maybe there's a whole bunch of different like summer trolls there, um, lounging on the lawn or something like that. Or androids, I don't know. Um, and whenever somebody wants to make like an action, everybody has like action tokens, and that's what I call like spending your spoon. So if you use real soup, you're spending your spoon. And so that means everybody takes an action. You can't take another action until everybody has done an action. So it kind of allows the ball to get passed around. And then to when you do an action, if you're using soup, you take a spoonful of soup, and however many pieces you have in your spoon is good or bad. And then the person GMing at that time decides what that means. Um,
All right.
and it was really interesting trying to figure out because it had to be a very ambiguous system where it's just like, yeah, that could maybe happen, or no, that could not maybe happen, or it may or may not happen. What's the vibe? Um, so so it's all kind of vibe based. Um,
That
so
fits with that wholesome sort of thing, is that like we're just gonna vibe here and tell a
yeah,
silly story, you know, like
the what's also made it interesting is that like the having soup as the mechanic inherently made it so it had to be like the game had to be simple because I couldn't be like, oh, I when you roll a specific number, this triggers that.
hmm.
You know, like, oh, this triggers like if you get a six, this triggers that aspect, and then everybody does a thing is like no, you're
No,
rolling for soup, so I don't know how many pieces, and you're probably not gonna count if you have a whole bunch of pieces in your spoon. So, so it's really just like, yeah, looks like I got a lot. Okay, cool. So this kind of happens. Um, but I also like the idea of like, um, I really enjoy the idea of well, the likely to happen and like unlikely to happen leads to like players being more creative in describing
hmm.
things. Whereas
Do
like
you
if I
set
just said, oh,
yeah,
if I just say
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
success or fail,
Hmm. Hmm.
they'd be like, I want to cross that river. Okay, make a roll. I got a high number. All right, you crossed it.
Yeah.
Um, It,
That
yeah,
is
so it's,
how the a lot of you know, checks or tests or roles are set up for sure.
yeah. So, yeah, I try to make it a little ambiguous just so it leads because one of the goals with all of my games really is I'm trying to make accessible games. So all of the writing for Good Soup is in the mindset of a person's never played a role-playing game before.
Yeah,
So, um, I mean, that goes back to my UX design
sure.
stuff. All my games are UX designed.
So I have one more question. Well, I mean, I have one more question right now,
Sure.
but like the uh that idea of like so the answer to so you set up like a binary pass fail, do you cross the bridge or not, did you get a high enough number to cross the bridge, you know, that example that you set up. So like the way it works in Good Soup is like, okay, is there I'm trying to can we get the can we remove the summer trolls from the lawn so that we can get into the Royal Observatory, and the whoever's GMing is like, well, that's not very likely because they're really big trolls, and then that's the answer. Like, oh, got you know, and so then it's almost like passing that back to the player, who's then like, now they know because of what they got in the spoon, and that they didn't get a yes no, they got a unlikely more likely, so then they have to complete
Mm.
the narrative then based on like whether or not it was unlikely. Or I mean, it is that what is that how the sequence works? Is that what's happening, or is it
I think
or
I think that question is like that won't count as an action if you're asking about the world.
hmm,
Um, it's only when you're doing something you're doing an action. So if you're like asking questions about what's happening, it's like does it look like I can wake these
Okay, okay.
trolls up? It's
Yeah.
like, nah, probably not. I mean, they're big. But then someone else can also be like, well, one's awake over there, sniff, like hanging out, walking down the street or whatever. And so people just kind of play off of each other and in
And so
that
the
kind of
the
way.
soup spoon test, when you put in your spoon, then you like there you still get like a sort of definitive answer, but it's definitive through interpretation of bits of soup, not
Yeah, so
definitive
it's
through
like
like six or versus rolling a three, you know?
yeah, so like you if they're sleeping, you could be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go tap on the summer troll with my whisk and twirl their hair a little bit to see if that wakes them up." And since I'm using my favorite utensil, which is the whisk, I can take another roll if I wanted to, or something like that. Or you could use your animal ability, just like honk or whatever, run, do something weird, do a animal thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but that the world itself is kind of in the mindset of like it's called the Lost Forest. It's supposed to be like land of the lost. So like anything can show up there. So I made it kind of also ambiguous on like what um like genre it's in. So
Yeah.
like is it sci-fi? Is it fantasy? It's kind
Right.
of whatever. And then I went into going on like more like roll table stuff. I do this thing a lot in my games where I don't describe everything in minute detail. And it goes back to like my enjoyment of just seeing how people interpret things. So like in the book I say summer troll. What does that mean?
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know. That
right.
is up to
It's
you to figure
mm,
that out. Or I have like hot goose. Is it delicious or is it like a really good looking goose? We don't know. So
you don't know
that's
till
in
you
the
decide.
moment. Yeah. So it's kind of like I call it like breadcrumbing is like I'm giving
Mm,
you like moments, but I'm not um describing something to its fullest so I can give you a chance to fill in the gaps.
yeah.
Um, just kind of leading your creativity.
I like that term. I mean, I'm familiar. I'm certainly understand that concept, although I'm not sure I've heard that term breadcrumbing before. Um, all right. I want to talk to you about Warped FM as well, because my understanding of that one is that it's a little bit bigger of a project, right? It is sort of like intended to be. I mean, I assume it's going to be, sort of standard TTR indie RPG size, 60 to 120 pages or so.
Yeah.
And so like you mentioned roll tables and stuff like that. So like how much of well the other thing that I mentioned that I think because Warped FM is you're doing like a radio like a small town radio sort of thing, and your guests are all like interdimensional beings of some sort that have
Hmm.
you've tuned into through the ether or something, right? I mean, that's the basic pitch, right? Um,
Yeah.
and which fits back into that slipstream thing that you were talking about earlier, where it's like it's a small town radio station. You're doing a show on the FM dial, except that like your guests are all weirdos from
Yeah.
somewhere else.
Somewhere else.
Uh, so it fits in with that. But like, to do like sort of a bigger book like that, what kind of things or challenges? And I should say this was successfully crowdfunded like last calendar year or earlier this year.
Or
Like,
it was for Zine Month in February this
okay,
year.
so it hasn't been that long
Yeah.
ago. Um,
Yeah.
so maybe it's not going to be a 60-page book then, if it's going to be a zine, but it's
It might be bigger. I don't know
all right.
if I keep writing more for
Well,
it.
okay. So it might be the size that I'm thinking. It's not, you're
Yeah.
not cutting yourself off at 24 pages.
No, I think I might not cut myself off. It might be a bit bigger than I have recently thought. But I think it's more just to give. I wanted to give myself space to create some game that people will really
Yeah.
enjoy. So I'm like, If it is 60 pages, great. I'll just staple it. But if it's more, um, all right, I'll have to get it printed in
Yeah.
another way. But that's fine. I'm not mad or angry about it.
So,
Um,
like, in doing a bigger project, that's the question that I'm leading to is like, what have you been able to keep of your sort of small scale design philosophy, excel at one thing, and what have you had to jettison? What have you had to do differently to make a bigger product? Like, what are your, so as you're working on it, what have you seen that, is different from the previous works that you've done, which are relatively very confined?
yeah. So I think the biggest challenge with this one is I'm creating like a campaign a lot as a GM-less game,
Okay.
and that's kind of tricky because I don't know what outcomes really the players are gonna get a lot of the time. So it's kind of like it's almost in a choose your own adventure, basically. So there'll be like three starting like story streams that you'll go through, can go through, and they're short like sessions. So um like the game itself is only like 45 minutes a session. So it's not like a terrible. I didn't want like if there were multiple campaigns, I didn't want you to be like, I already spent like 3 months playing one session. Why would I want to do it again? And it's like, it's really quick. You just do another thing. So it's only be I plan it to be only 10 story beats, but yeah, it's been a lot of figuring out how to make that feel nice and also GM-less. And then what I've recently learned is well, there's two things. One was um wrapping giving the game a solid theme that people can understand. So the idea is with when you get the Warped FM book, I'm planning to make it actually look like the cover's gonna look cool because I gotta catch those eyes.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
when you open it up, it's actually gonna look like a manual to like fix your washing machine or something like that. Like something you like accidentally dropped behind your dryer or whatever, and it's all like kind of like mishmashed and like warped inside or splattered or whatever. Because where you find the portal is in your laundry room basement. Um, and so make that theming kind of come across more and then the other kind of topic was using mechanics to kind of encourage the gameplay. So the Warped FM doesn't have really any mechanics. Like if you're just doing a one-shot version and not focusing on the campaign at all, there's no besides like the initial like rolling dice to see what kind of creature you are or what questions are you gonna ask. There's no rolling during the game. It's just talking like an interview.
Hmm.
So, but if I wanted a campaign, I got to give it a little more oomph. So I have to figure out what can help drive like player progress over the course of time. You're all different. All the players are different um, people living in this apartment complex. So like how does your relationship with your like neighbors and stuff change over time? Um so
Okay.
yeah, it's been the Warped FM has been really tricky in the GM-less but also campaign aspect.
Yeah. I'm thinking about something like I don't know if you know Graham Gens's Under the Autumn Strangely, but that is a
Yeah, I
really
have it.
that's
Yeah.
like a that's really elegantly designed to be a one shot. It is not necessary. I mean, you could come back and play it again, I suppose, but like that's not the design of that game. But like that's GMless and but a one shot, but to get that sort of like ongoing progress for your characters and stuff like that, like are they that does sound like a hard design challenge to like how do you get there? Um the I'm thinking about the like those relationships like different so like it's I was thinking of it more as like the small town radio thing, but like it sounds like you're all sort of like tumbled through the portal and you're all in the same place, or is
You're all
it
running a podcast. That's what it
okay,
is. Yeah.
okay. So it's not okay, so it's you're running a podcast together and then like so you have to like you're navigating then like the tensions of like living together as a bunch of strange creatures, but then you still gotta like do the
Oh,
work
you're
of the
not, you're
show.
humans.
Okay.
So the podcast people are humans interviewing creatures, which are whatever comes out of the portal at that time.
Okay.
And then those creatures can't really get past a certain area of that portal. Um, and so how the gameplay works is there'll be like people interviewing that are running the podcast, and then there'll be players that are creatures, and the interviewers are trying to figure out what the creatures are made of and like what are
Hmm.
their motivations, like discovering their world. And so it's very improv heavy. Um, yeah.
And so then those beats will then somehow those feedback into like the relationships between the humans that are together and what
Mhm.
they want or need from their their time the show or from
Yeah, I
their
think
life
it's
outside
like
the show or
it's gonna be like what they learn during the podcast, and then if the other players are playing the creatures as like what are things happening behind the scenes
Hmm,
and that kind of thing. So it's a lot about like writing about your own player. Um, um,
interesting.
but yeah, the
You're
kind of
putting
like
together a lot of elements there. Very interesting.
yeah, the big like kind of mm, goal. I wanted to say metaphor, but it's more of a goal. The goal with the game is helping teach people to ask more meaningful questions.
Hmm. All
Um,
right.
yeah. So it's like secretly kind of just like, hey, you should ask these questions,
Yeah.
or like, or another goal is kind of effective communication,
Yeah.
like learning how to effectively communicate, being in the moment, and like that leads to like asking the meaningful questions of like really gets to the bottom of what the creature is about. Um, but yeah, I usually like I'll give the players like some structure with the questions, but I I need to kind of work more to figure out how to encourage them to discover stuff on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've obviously we could. I'm thinking of ideas, but it's like we can talk about that in a minute here. Can people still get onto that campaign? Is it at the stage where it's like a pre-order stage, or is it still like the Kickstarter's
Yeah, you
still
can
up
still
and
pre-order it. So,
all right.
yeah. So you could go on Kickstarter and
Do you
pre-order it.
do I dare ask like if you have like an expected like when you're gonna finish it up and when it'll be out there? Or is it just it's you're working on it and it'll be ready when you figure it
I'm
out?
really hoping um August the writing will be done,
Okay.
and it well even more done than that, more like layout and stuff
Yeah.
is figured out.
Uh,
I It's gonna be a lot of work, but I'm also planning on another TTRPG crowdfunding campaign in November. So
Well, you want, I mean, sure, but just
yeah,
keep them coming, keep them coming. That's how
keep
you got
them
to do it.
coming. But the plan with that one is it's that one's gonna be once it reaches crowdfunding, um, it's gonna be basically ready to go to the printers and
Yeah,
that kind of thing. I'm working with another. This is the first time I'm working with another designer on it, on a game, and a illustrator for like a big project.
yeah.
So it'll be fun. That's
Uh,
gonna be really cool.
yeah. Well, you can give us a pitch for that in just a second. I have another question about Warped FM, and
Sure.
it is that I love to listen to podcasts. So, like, is there sort of an actual play version of Warped FM, which would just be the podcast episodes, like that the group is making, that you could like, is that if somebody did that, would that be like, yeah, this is what I love to hear this, or is that like not
Yeah,
really, that wouldn't capture enough of the
I
game to
would love
really,
to put that together. I know a lot of um players who would probably really love to have a campaign of that. Um, it's just another layer of
sure.
time.
Right, sure, sure. I mean, given
I would
given
love to put
infinite
it together.
time and
Um,
resources, that would be the thing.
yeah, I think
Um,
once it's like complete, it would be a lot easier to put something together for that.
yeah. Uh, so we don't have a giant amount more time. I think we've talked for almost an hour. I do have I have one sort of like more idea about to ask you about like kind of your process, just something that I was thinking about myself for my own
Sure.
work. Like you talked about like you were just talking about this upcoming campaign and how you've got it, you want to have it done and in layout and stuff like that by a certain date. So I was just wondering if like you how you think about a product. Like I know for myself, like I open like a Word document on whatever my word processor of choice is, and I type
Mm,
out a thing, and then I worry about like layout and like all that kind of stuff later. But I think there are people who I may be getting an inkling of like they're working and thinking about layout much earlier in the process and sort of almost I know some people like write into layout, like they compose their text into like
cool.
their layout templates and stuff like that. And they're like already working about it, thinking about the final design and presentation of the words before they've written the words. And I don't know if I had a moment of like a crisis of confidence, I guess, earlier today when I was thinking about that. I'm like, am I doing it wrong the whole time to like just have the
No.
words and so to turn it into a question to ask you, like you're shaking your head already, but like what way do you work? Do you think about like this is going to be this way and it needs to have this is only going to have so much space because it's 3 pages and so like I'm laying it out this way
Mm.
and you're thinking
I
about everything that you're doing as you're writing it, or do you just write it and then make it fit later?
mm. Yeah, I think it depends of like when I come up with an idea, um, I'm kind of discerning like what type of game is it
Hmm.
gonna be? Like, oh, I have this really crazy random idea. It's like, how deep can it go? If it can't go that deep, then it's probably like one of my skinny zines where it's all just little one shots on 8 pages or whatever. Um, and then that I already know the layout of that because they have a pretty standard layout. But I'm not like necessarily typing for it. I just know the amount of content I can make for it. Um, but usually when I think of games, I'm thinking about how it feels to bring it to the table. So, like to go to Good Soup. I wanted it when I was making the game. I was like, I want you to play this game. Um, I want it to have the feeling of you're at a potluck and you're sitting around all the couches or the bean bags or on the floor because there's no more chairs. And you're all just chatting about like, what if this happened? Oh, that's cool. Blah blah blah. And you're just having a good time and just talking about whatever. And I want that feeling of
Mm.
that's what I wanted when you're playing Good Soup. So that's kind of how I think about games.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, sometimes I think about like what mechanic I want, or like it kind of flicks back and forth where it's like, okay, I have this mood. What kind of mechanic would fit this mood out of the mechanics I know? Um, and then I'll assign that and see if that creates that mood. Um, yeah, that's kind of my
Yeah.
process. In terms of writing, I just go my kind of rule that I give is like write down the rules as soon as possible. Um, 'Cause I mean, it's just it's a like it's so much easier to critique something. So if you
Mm.
just create it, you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
critiquing is it's a breeze. It's like,
Well,
oh, this is terrible. Let's get
yeah,
rid of that.
the
Why did I write
phrase,
that?
I think I got this phrase from someone else, but I don't remember who, but the phrase that I know is you cannot edit a blank page.
Right. Oh, that's
You
good. I
yeah,
like that.
you have to get it down first, and then you can see whether or not it was good. But like, it's the same idea. Uh, yeah, I hearing you talk about like, I love that description of like, oh, I tried when I think of a game, I think about it sort of like the feeling of playing it that I'm trying to capture. I think I'm so much more, I don't know, wordy and in my own thinking. Like when I'm writing a game, I'm writing, setting materials that are going to create
Mm,
a more of almost like a literary sort of mental image of the play space, that's kind of like where my head is going. Like if I describe it this way, that will create in the way that a genre piece of fiction does the context for what the players are then going to be trying to emulate. But I like much more. I don't know. It's a very different way of doing it. I'm just thinking about my own process. I think I lean
yeah.
more in that other direction. It's very different than like I want the players to
Mm,
feel this way
yeah.
in a real
Another thing
experience.
is like I also think of product design
Hmm.
like right off the bat,
Yeah.
which was maybe a bad thing, but like with Good Soup, I'm like I want it to feel like I'm looking through my grandma's like recipe little booklet where it has like these like
Yeah.
um swirls and stuff next to the name on the top, and it's only like a little notebook size kind of
Yeah. Like those
thing.
community cookbooks that definitely,
Yeah. It was
the
just like
like,
I mean they were like recipe cards, like if you know
mm,
like an index card size,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Um and so I was like I want that. So and I also keep true to my limitations. So I'm like I mean when I made Good Soup, I didn't know how to kickstart anything or I have never kickstarted anything. And I was like I don't have really I'm not known. Um, I'm not known and I don't have any products. So I'm just gonna crank out a lot of products and then people can know me and then I could do a Kickstarter.
Yeah, well,
So
you're cranking out products and you're going to the cons to meet people, so I think you're on the right
yeah.
track for that thing, for that process. Well, I think I've asked all the questions that occur to me to ask. I'm sure I could ask you more, but it is sort of like we don't wanna just chat forever. So Jordan, thank you for your time and tell us where people can find, I don't know, can people still check out your video game portfolio? Where is Good Soup live on the internet? What cons will you
Oh,
be
I
at?
can
Where are
make
all
it
the
I
things?
can make it more I turned off all the pages because I was like, I don't know if people are really gonna want to see this anymore. It kind of looks weird. Because now I'm being known for tabletop stuff, but like, I mean, if people want to see the indie game, maybe I'll just put it in a different section on my itch page. But yeah, it's goosepoopgames.com. is where all the table stuff happens, where you can buy the games. On all the socials, it's Goosepoop207. Um, all the socials. And then my itch is Goosepoop Games. I don't know. It's something. If you
Yeah.
look it up, you'll probably find
I mean, your website takes you there,
it.
so
Yeah.
it's fine. And I'll put all those links in the description of this video so that you can find them there. Pretty easy to find Goosepoop 207. And you want to shout out any cons we're recording this in early June. Where you're gonna be. This video
Oh,
I think this video is scheduled to come out. Let me look at my calendar real quick. I think yeah, well, we may miss Origins this video, but
it's okay.
uh
I'm gonna be at Origins. I'm gonna be at Dice Tower East.
all right.
I'm gonna be with the IGDN booth at Gen Con. I'll and then I'll be at. I'm trying to go in list of the year. Timeline. Gen Con, and then I'll be at Gamehole Con, and then I'll be at PAX Unplugged. I think I got a booth, so that's gonna be
Yeah,
great. Last minute booth.
pretty
Um,
cool.
yep. And then other little local cons
Yeah.
as
Well,
well.
I'll be at most of those that you named. So I'll be seeing you throughout the year, and we'll have to check in about your progress uh, uh, on Warped
So many
FM
things.
and other things. We'll be pitching stupid games to each other, I'm sure,
Yeah,
at the from the con floor. So again, Jordan, thank you for your time. Thanks for walking us through your game design history
my brain.
uh, and your brain. Yeah, it's been nice to get to know you a little bit better in this interview format. And I want to thank all my viewers for watching this video. You can find all the stuff from Jordan at the links that are in the description. And thanks for watching. And put a dumb animal idea. Which animal would you be in good soup, and what do you bring to the soup? What are you trying to put in the
No,
soup? What kind of animal?
no idea is too dumb.
No idea is too dumb.
Too
Put
dumb.
that on the business
Make
card.
it extra stupid. That's what I go for. Um thanks so much everybody for listening. And thanks for having me on. This was great.